My boyfriend looked me straight in the eye and said, "Love can wait, but friendship can't. They'll be here after. After. Not if something happens to us. Not God forbid we break up. Just after." Like he'd already penciled our expiration date somewhere between his next boys' trip and whatever emergency his Brotherhood would cook up next. I'm 25, and I thought I was dating a man. Turns out I was dating a fraternity pledge who never graduated. For 2 years, I've been competing with 4 other guys for my own boyfriend's attention, and losing every single time. His name is Tyler, and he has this group he calls the Brotherhood. Yeah, they actually call themselves that unironically. Tyler, Marcus, Jake, Connor, and Brody. 5 grown men in their late 20s who still act like they're rushing Sigma Chi. They have matching tattoos, a group chat that never stops, and apparently a blood oath that puts their bro code above everything else, including the women they claim to love. I used to think it was cute that he had such close friends. Now I realize I'm not his girlfriend. I'm just some girl who happens to sleep in his bed while he lives his real life with 4 other dudes. The breaking point came last month when he chose their annual brocation over my sister's wedding. But what happened after I confronted him about it? That's when I discovered the truth about this so-called Brotherhood. And trust me, it's so much worse than just immature guys prioritizing beer pong over relationships. What I found out about Tyler and his friends didn't just end our relationship. It made me question everything I thought I knew about the man I'd been planning a future with. This is that story. My name is Sarah, I'm 25, and I work as a graphic designer for a marketing agency in downtown Portland. I've always been the type of person who values deep, meaningful relationships over surface-level connections. I have a small but tight circle of girlfriends from college, and I'm close with my family, especially my younger sister Emma, who's getting married next month. I met Tyler 2 years ago at a coffee shop near my office. He was this charming, confident guy who seemed to have his life together. 27 years old, works in sales for a tech company, drives a nice car, has his own apartment. On paper, he was everything I thought I wanted. Tall, handsome, successful, and social. The kind of guy who could make me laugh until my stomach hurt, and who seemed genuinely interested in building something real together. Our first few months were incredible. Tyler was attentive, romantic, and made me feel like I was the center of his universe. He'd surprise me with little gifts, remember details about my day, and we'd spend entire weekends just talking and getting to know each other. He told me about his close group of friends from college, and I thought it was sweet that he'd maintained those relationships for so long. The Brotherhood, as he called them, consisted of Tyler, Marcus, Jake, Connor, and Brody. They'd all been roommates junior year at Oregon State, and had stayed incredibly close ever since. They lived within a 20-mile radius of each other, hung out multiple times a week, and took annual trips together. Tyler described them as the brothers I never had, and the most loyal people in the world. About 8 months ago, Tyler asked me to move in with him. His lease was up, and he suggested we find a place together. I was hesitant at first. 2 years felt early for such a big step, but he was persuasive. He talked about our future, about how much he loved waking up next to me, about wanting to build a life together. So we found this beautiful 2-bedroom apartment in the Pearl District, split the rent and utilities down the middle, and I thought we were taking the next step towards something permanent. The apartment became our sanctuary, or at least I thought it was. We decorated it together, hosted dinner parties, and I started picturing us there for years to come. Tyler even gave me a key to his gym and introduced me to his coworkers as his partner, which felt significant and mature. But something shifted after we moved in together. It was subtle at first. Tyler started spending more and more time with the Brotherhood. What used to be 1 or 2 nights a week became 4 or 5. Sunday football became Sunday through Monday night if there was a game. Their group chat, which I'd initially found endearing, became this constant presence in our relationship. Tyler's phone would buzz at all hours with messages from the Brotherhood group chat. During dinner, during movies, during intimate moments, it didn't matter. He'd always check it immediately, and more often than not, he'd need to quickly respond to whatever crisis or plan they were discussing. I started noticing that our plans became secondary to whatever the Brotherhood had going on. Date nights got rescheduled if Marcus needed help moving furniture. Weekend getaways got canceled if Connor was going through a breakup and needed support. Even quiet evenings at home would get interrupted by emergency calls about Jake's work drama or Brody's family issues. Marcus is the unofficial leader, works in finance, owns a house, and seems to coordinate most of their activities. He's single by choice, claims he's too focused on building wealth for serious relationships, and has strong opinions about how the other guys should prioritize their lives. Jake is the party guy, bartends at a trendy downtown spot, knows everyone, and can get the group into any club or restaurant. He's the one who plans their epic nights out and weekend trips to Vegas, Cabo, or wherever they decide to blow their money. Connor is the emotional one, works as a personal trainer, goes through relationships like tissues, and constantly needs the group's support through his various romantic disasters. Every breakup becomes a group emergency, requiring immediate intervention. Brody is the wild card, works construction, has a temper, and seems to create drama wherever he goes. Whether it's bar fights, work conflicts, or family issues, Brody's problems somehow become everyone's problems. What I slowly realized was that I wasn't Tyler's girlfriend living with him. I was more like a roommate who happened to sleep in his bed. The Brotherhood was his real family, his real priority, his real emotional investment. I was just there, convenient when he needed someone to split bills with or have sex with, but ultimately optional when it came to the important stuff. Tyler would spend hours on the phone with them, planning trips I wasn't invited to, discussing problems I wasn't allowed to help with, and making decisions about his life that somehow never included me. When I tried to bring up feeling left out, or wanting more couple time, he'd accuse me of being clingy or trying to control his friendships. "These guys have been there for me since college," he'd say. "They're not going anywhere. You need to understand that they're part of the package." The package. Like I was supposed to be grateful for the scraps of attention he threw my way between Brotherhood obligations. By the time we'd been living together for 6 months, I was starting to feel like a stranger in my own relationship. Tyler knew more about Connor's dating life than he did about my career goals. He could recite Marcus's investment portfolio, but couldn't remember when my sister's wedding was. He'd drop everything to help Jake with a work crisis, but would roll his eyes when I needed support during a stressful project deadline. I kept telling myself it was just a phase, that he'd eventually find balance, that our relationship would mature, and he'd start prioritizing us over them. I was wrong. Dead wrong. And I was about to find out just how wrong I really was. Let me paint you a clearer picture of what I was dealing with. Marcus, the self-appointed leader, works for some investment firm and never lets anyone forget it. He's the type who wears expensive watches and talks about building generational wealth, while simultaneously blowing thousands on boys' trips to Miami. He's 28, never been in a relationship longer than 6 months, and has this weird superiority complex about being single. "Relationships are for people who can't handle being alone," he'd say, usually while side-eyeing me during group gatherings. Jake, the bartender, is actually pretty charming when he's not enabling the group's worst impulses. He's got this easy smile and can talk to anyone, which makes him dangerous, because he's the one who convinces everyone that their ridiculous plans are actually great ideas. "Come on, bro. When's the next time we'll all be free for a spontaneous trip to Portland's strip clubs?" Yeah, that was a real conversation I overheard. Connor is exhausting. This man has had more relationship drama in 2 years than most people have in a lifetime. Every month there's a new girl, a new crisis, a new reason why the Brotherhood needs to rally around him. Tyler would literally leave our bed at midnight to go console Connor about whatever woman had done him wrong that week. The irony of him giving relationship advice while destroying his own wasn't lost on me. Brody is the one who scared me the most. Hot-tempered, unpredictable, and always one drink away from starting a fight. He works construction, which he uses as an excuse for his aggressive behavior. "I deal with real men all day, not like you office guys," he'd say to Tyler, as if working in sales made my boyfriend less masculine. Brody had this way of challenging the other guy's manhood whenever they showed any signs of prioritizing their relationships. What I started to realize was that the Brotherhood operated on this twisted hierarchy, where your loyalty to the group was measured by how much you were willing to sacrifice for it. Missing a group event for a girlfriend was seen as weakness. Choosing a romantic partner over a bro was betrayal. They had this unspoken competition about who could be the most ride or die for the group. Tyler, unfortunately, was desperate to prove himself worthy of their respect. He was the newest addition to their college friend group. He'd transferred to Oregon State junior year and was grateful to be accepted into their established circle. Even now, 5 years later, he still acted like he had something to prove. The Brotherhood had rules, though they'd never admit it. Girlfriends couldn't be brought to certain events. Bros-only trips were sacred and non-negotiable. If someone in the group needed help, you dropped everything, no exceptions. And God forbid you ever chose a woman over a bro. That was the ultimate sin. I watched Tyler navigate this toxic dynamic every day. He'd get anxious if he couldn't make it to their weekly Wednesday night hangouts. He'd overcompensate by being extra available for their weekend plans. When Marcus made snide comments about whipped guys who let their girlfriends control them, Tyler would practically bend over backward to prove he wasn't one of those men. The first major red flag happened about 4 months after we moved in together. My best friend from college, Jessica, was visiting Portland for the first time. I'd planned this whole weekend. Wine tasting, brunch spots, showing her around the city. Tyler knew about this for weeks and had promised to join us for dinner Saturday night to finally meet her. Saturday afternoon, Connor called in crisis mode. His latest girlfriend had broken up with him via text, and he was spiraling. The Brotherhood was assembling for emergency drinks and emotional support. Tyler looked at me with this apologetic expression that I was already getting tired of seeing. "Babe, I'm so sorry, but Connor really needs us right now." This breakup hit him hard. "Tyler, this is the third Connor breakup crisis this year, and Jessica is only here for 2 days. I know, but the guys are counting on me. Connor specifically asked for me to be there. He left. I spent the evening explaining to Jessica why my boyfriend of almost 2 years couldn't be bothered to meet my closest friend. She was polite about it, but I could see the concern in her eyes. "Sarah, does this happen a lot?" More than I wanted to admit. After that, it became a pattern. Tyler would commit to something with me, then the Brotherhood would have some emergency or event, and suddenly I was understanding girlfriend who supported his friendships. Except I wasn't understanding anymore. I was becoming resentful. My work had a company retreat in wine country that partners were invited to. Tyler promised to come, even bought a new shirt for it. The day before we were supposed to leave, Jake announced he'd gotten them all tickets to some exclusive UFC fight viewing party. "Bro, this is once in a lifetime. My manager hooked us up with VIP access." Tyler chose the fight. I went to the retreat alone and had to explain to my colleagues why my live-in boyfriend wasn't there. My boss, a woman in her 50s who'd been married for 20 years, pulled me aside. "Honey, a man who wants to be with you will be with you. Don't make excuses for someone who's showing you where you rank in their priorities." But the real wake-up call came during what I now call the Great Bachelor Party Incident. Marcus was getting married, shocking I know, and had planned this elaborate bachelor party weekend in Las Vegas. 3 days, 2 nights, the works. The wedding was in 6 weeks, and Tyler had been talking about this trip for months. The problem? The bachelor party was the same weekend as my sister Emma's bridal shower. Emma, who I'm incredibly close to, who had specifically asked me to help plan and host her shower, who was counting on me to be there for one of the most important weekends before her wedding. When I reminded Tyler about the conflict, he looked at me like I'd asked him to betray his country. "Sarah, this is Marcus's bachelor party. This is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. And Emma is my only sister. This is also once in a lifetime. But the guys are all going. I can't be the only one who doesn't show up. And I can't miss my sister's bridal shower for your friend's bachelor party." That's when he said it. The sentence that would replay in my head for weeks afterward. "Look, babe, you'll have other chances to celebrate with Emma. But this Brotherhood thing? This is forever. These guys will be in my life no matter what. No matter what." The implication was crystal clear. Emma would always be my sister, but Tyler and we were temporary, disposable, optional. I started paying closer attention after that, really listening to how Tyler talked about the Brotherhood versus how he talked about us. The difference was stark and heartbreaking, but I had no idea how much worse it was about to get. 3 weeks after the bachelor party conversation, I got the opportunity I'd been working toward for over a year. My agency was pitching for a major Nike campaign, and my creative director wanted me to lead the design team. It was huge, the kind of project that could fast-track my career and potentially lead to an art director position. The presentation was scheduled for a Friday afternoon, and I'd been preparing for weeks. Tyler knew how important this was to me. I'd been staying late at the office, stressed about the pitch, and he'd been supportive, or so I thought. The night before the presentation, I was rehearsing my part when Tyler got a call from Brody. Apparently, Brody had gotten into it with his supervisor at the construction site, and was threatening to quit. The guys were meeting at Jake's bar to talk him down and figure out a plan. Tyler was already reaching for his keys. "Babe, I'm really sorry, but Brody's about to do something stupid. We need to stop him from throwing away his job." I looked at him, exhausted from weeks of preparation. "Tyler, I really need you here tonight. I'm nervous about tomorrow and I could use the support. You're going to be amazing tomorrow. You always are. But Brody might not have a job if we don't intervene tonight." He left at 8 p.m., came home at 3 a.m., drunk and loud, waking me up the night before the biggest presentation of my career. When I confronted him the next morning, he was hungover and dismissive. "We saved Brody's job. He's not quitting anymore. You should be proud that your boyfriend helps his friends." The presentation went well. We got the Nike account. But Tyler missed my celebration dinner because Connor had a Tinder date that went badly and needed emergency bro support. I celebrated the biggest win of my career with my co-workers, while my boyfriend consoled a grown man about a failed hookup. My mom's 55th birthday was in early October. She'd specifically requested a small family dinner. Just me, my dad, Emma, and Tyler. Mom had been going through a rough patch with her health, some autoimmune issues that had been draining her energy, and she wanted a quiet celebration with the people closest to her. I'd told Tyler about this dinner weeks in advance. He'd even helped me pick out her gift, and had seemed genuinely excited to spend time with my family. My parents really liked Tyler. My dad especially enjoyed talking sports with him, and my mom thought he was charming and funny. The day of the dinner, Tyler seemed off. He kept checking his phone and seemed distracted. Finally, around 3 p.m., he came clean. Jake had gotten last-minute tickets to some exclusive whiskey tasting event downtown. "It's this super rare Japanese whiskey, babe. Jake's manager could only get 5 tickets, and they're worth like $300 each. Tyler, it's my mom's birthday dinner. She specifically asked for you to be there. I know, and I feel terrible, but this is literally a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Jake went out of his way to include me. And my mom went out of her way to include you in her birthday celebration." He was already texting the group chat. "Look, your mom will understand. She's cool like that. But if I don't go to this, the guys will think I'm choosing your family over them. Maybe because you should be choosing my family over them sometimes." That's when his tone changed. He got that defensive edge that I was becoming too familiar with. "Sarah, you're being unreasonable. It's just dinner. You'll have other dinners with your mom. Just dinner." My mom's 55th birthday was just dinner. I went alone. Had to explain to my parents why Tyler couldn't make it. My dad just nodded quietly, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes. My mom, ever gracious, said she understood, but I caught her looking at the empty chair where Tyler should have been sitting. Later that night, Tyler came home buzzed and excited, showing me pictures from the whiskey tasting. "Babe, you should have seen this place. The whiskey was incredible. Jake knows the owner, so we got the VIP treatment. He never asked how my mom's dinner went." The breaking point started building in November. My dad called me at work on a Tuesday afternoon, his voice shaky in a way I'd never heard before. My mom had collapsed at home and was being rushed to the hospital. The doctors weren't sure what was wrong, but they suspected it might be related to her autoimmune condition. I left work immediately and called Tyler from the car. He was in a meeting but promised to meet me at the hospital as soon as he could get away. I spent 3 hours in the emergency room waiting area, terrified and alone, watching other families support each other while I kept checking my phone for updates from Tyler. Finally, he texted, "Stuck in crisis mode at work. Will be there as soon as I can. Love you." Except he wasn't stuck at work. I found out later he'd gone straight from the office to Marcus's house for their weekly investment strategy session. Basically an excuse to drink expensive bourbon and talk about crypto. He'd completely forgotten about my mom's emergency. When he finally showed up at 9 p.m., my mom had been stabilized and admitted for observation. The crisis had passed, but those 6 hours of sitting alone in that waiting room, wondering if my mom was okay, had changed something fundamental in me. "I'm so sorry, babe. Work was insane, and then traffic was terrible." I didn't call him out on the lie. I was too emotionally drained to fight, but I made a mental note. When I really needed him, Tyler wasn't there. When the Brotherhood needed him, he was always available. December brought the final straw before the ultimate confrontation. Tyler and I had planned to spend Christmas with my family. Emma was bringing her fiancé, and it was going to be this beautiful, intimate holiday celebration. Tyler had been excited about it, talking about how much he was looking forward to a real family Christmas, since his own family lived across the country. 2 weeks before Christmas, Marcus announced that his family had a last-minute cancellation at their cabin in Tahoe. Bro's Christmas trip was born. 5 days of skiing, drinking, and bonding in a luxury cabin that Marcus's family owned. It's Christmas, Tyler. We have plans with my family. I know, but this opportunity won't come again. Marcus's family never lets anyone use the cabin. Christmas with my family won't come again either. Once Emma gets married and starts having kids, these intimate family holidays are going to be rare. Tyler was already mentally packing. Your family will understand. They're cool people. But if I miss this trip, I'll never hear the end of it from the guys. Tyler, do you even want to be in this relationship? Of course I do. Why would you ask that? Because you act like spending time with me and my family is a chore, but spending time with your friends is a privilege. That's not fair. The guys and I have history. We've been through everything together. And what are we building together? What is this relationship to you? You're being dramatic. Just because I want to maintain my friendships doesn't mean I don't care about you. Maintaining friendships and abandoning your girlfriend every time they call are two different things. I'm not abandoning you. I'm just not going to let you control who I spend time with. That conversation happened on a Sunday night. Tyler left for Tahoe on Thursday. I spent Christmas with my family, making excuses for why my boyfriend of 2 years couldn't be bothered to show up for the holidays. Emma's fiancé was there, being wonderful and present, and everything Tyler wasn't. My dad pulled me aside Christmas morning. Sweetheart, I like Tyler, but a man who wants to build a life with you shows up for the important moments. Tyler posted Instagram stories all weekend. The Brotherhood skiing, drinking, laughing, having the time of their lives. Meanwhile, I was realizing that I'd spent 2 years begging for scraps of attention from someone who gave his best energy to everyone but me. When Tyler came back from Tahoe, tanned and relaxed and full of stories about their epic trip, I had a moment of clarity that hit me like a physical blow. He was happier after 5 days with them than he'd been in months with me. I wasn't his girlfriend. I was his obligation, the thing he had to deal with between the fun parts of his life. But I still had no idea how much worse it was about to get, because what happened next didn't just end our relationship. It made me question everything I thought I knew about the man I'd been living with for 8 months. The confrontation that would change everything was just 2 weeks away. January 15th was supposed to be special. It was my sister Emma's wedding, the day I'd been looking forward to for months. Emma had asked me to be her maid of honor, and I'd been planning and preparing for this moment since she got engaged. The wedding was on a Saturday, with the rehearsal dinner Friday night. It was going to be a beautiful weekend celebration of love and family. Tyler had known about this wedding since we started dating. It was literally the first major family event I'd told him about. He'd been excited, had his suit picked out, had even offered to help with some of the logistics. For once, I thought the Brotherhood would take a back seat to something that mattered to me. I should have known better. Wednesday night, 3 days before the wedding, Tyler came home from work with that familiar look on his face. The one that meant the Brotherhood had made plans that would somehow become my problem. Babe, we need to talk about this weekend. My stomach immediately dropped. What about this weekend? So, you know how Marcus has been stressed about his new job, right? Well, Jake found out about this exclusive guys' retreat in Bend. It's like a wellness thing. Hiking, meditation, bonding exercises. Super expensive and hard to get into. I stared at him, not comprehending what I was hearing. Tyler, this weekend is Emma's wedding. I know. But here's the thing. Marcus really needs this. He's been having panic attacks about the new position, and this retreat could really help him. Jake managed to get us all spots, but only because someone canceled last minute. Tyler, I'm the maid of honor. You're my date. We've had these plans for over a year. He started pacing, which he always did when he knew he was being unreasonable but was going to push forward anyway. Look, I feel terrible about the timing, but this retreat is exactly what Marcus needs right now. And honestly, the Brotherhood has been going through some stuff lately. What stuff? Connor's been saying that some of us are getting too wrapped up in our relationships and losing sight of what really matters. There's been tension about priorities and loyalty. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about Marcus's stress or some random retreat opportunity. This was a test. The Brotherhood was testing Tyler's loyalty, and he was choosing to prove himself worthy of their approval by abandoning me at my sister's wedding. Tyler, Are you seriously telling me that you're going to miss my sister's wedding to prove to your friends that you're still loyal to them? It's not about proving anything. It's about being there for people who have always been there for me. I've been there for you. For 2 years, I've been there for you. That's different. How is it different? Because he stopped pacing and looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before. Cold, calculating. Like he was about to say something he'd been thinking for a long time, but had never voiced. Because what, Tyler? Because love can wait, but friendship can't. They'll be here after. The words hit me like a physical slap. After. Not if we break up. Not if something happens. After. Like our relationship had an expiration date that everyone knew about except me. After what, Tyler? You know what I mean. No, I really don't. After what? He ran his hands through his hair, realizing he'd said too much. Sarah, don't make this bigger than it is. After what, Tyler? My voice was getting louder, but I didn't care. After this runs its course. Look, we're young. We're figuring things out. But the guys? That's permanent. That's family. I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. This runs its course? Tyler, we live together. We've been talking about our future. I thought we were building something permanent. We are. I mean, we're seeing where things go. But Sarah, be realistic. How many college relationships actually last? How many people marry their mid-20s girlfriend? Is that what I am to you? Your mid-20s girlfriend who you're just seeing where things go with? You're putting words in my mouth. No, I'm finally hearing the words that have been in your head this whole time. The apartment felt too small suddenly. I could barely breathe. Tyler, I need you to be very clear with me right now. Do you see a future with me? A real future? He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything I needed to know. I care about you, Sarah. I love being with you, but I can't predict the future. But you can predict that your friends will be there after our relationship ends? That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. I started pacing now. Pieces of conversations and behaviors suddenly making sense. How long have you been thinking of us as temporary? I haven't been. How long, Tyler? Sarah, you're spiraling. Answer the question. He sat down heavily on our couch. The couch we'd picked out together. The couch I'd thought we'd have for years. Look, when we moved in together, I thought it would be good for us to see how compatible we really are. You thought moving in together would be a trial run? Isn't that what moving in together is for most people? I stared at him. Tyler, I moved in with you because I thought we were taking the next step toward marriage, toward building a life together. Marriage? He looked genuinely surprised. Sarah, we've never talked about marriage. We've talked about our future constantly. Yeah, like general future stuff. Not marriage. That's when my phone buzzed with a text. It was from my friend Jessica, who worked downtown and had just seen something that made her think of me. The text included a photo that made my blood run cold. It was Tyler, Marcus, Jake, Connor, and Brody at a sports bar downtown. They weren't at work. They weren't in crisis mode. They were having drinks and laughing, clearly having planned this meetup. The timestamp showed it was from 2 hours ago. Tyler, where did you tell me you were tonight? What? When you came home late. Where did you say you were? Work ran late, and then I had to stop by Marcus's place. I showed him the photo. Jessica just sent me this. You were at Murphy's pub with all of them 2 hours ago. His face went white. Sarah, I can explain. You lied to me about where you were so you could hang out with them? It wasn't like that. We were discussing the retreat, and you've been lying to me about where you are when you're with them. Not lying, just not getting into details because I knew you'd get upset. How long have you been lying to me, Tyler? I haven't been lying. The night of my mom's birthday. You said you were stuck at work. Were you really? Silence. The day my mom was in the hospital. You said you were in meetings all day. Were you? More silence. How many times have you chosen them over me and then lied about it? Sarah, you're making this sound worse than it is. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you've been living a double life, pretending to be committed to me while actually being committed to them. Tyler stood up, getting defensive. You know what? Maybe Connor was right. Maybe some of us have gotten too wrapped up in trying to please our girlfriends and we've lost sight of what really matters. What really matters. Loyalty. Brotherhood. The people who've been there through everything. I've been there through everything. For 2 years, Sarah. They've been there for 7. So this is about seniority. They get priority because they knew you first? It's about understanding that some relationships are more important than others. The words hung in the air between us. Some relationships are more important than others. And I wasn't one of the important ones. Tyler, I need you to listen to me very carefully. If you go on this retreat instead of coming to my sister's wedding, we're done. You're giving me an ultimatum? I'm telling you what my boundaries are. If you can't prioritize our relationship for one weekend, for my sister's wedding, then you're showing me exactly where I stand in your life. Sarah, you can't ask me to choose between you and my friends. I'm not asking you to choose between me and your friends. I'm asking you to choose me for one weekend. One weekend in 2 years where I need you to put us first. He looked at me for a long moment, and I could see him weighing his options, weighing whether keeping me happy was worth potentially disappointing the Brotherhood. The fact that he had to think about it told me everything I needed to know. I can't let the guys down, Sarah. They're counting on me. And I was counting on you. I walked to our bedroom and started pulling clothes out of the closet. Tyler followed me, suddenly panicked. What are you doing? I'm packing a bag. I'm going to stay at Emma's until after the wedding. Sarah, don't be dramatic. We can work this out. No, Tyler, we can't. Because you just told me that your friends are more important than I am. You just told me that you see our relationship as temporary. You just chose a guy's retreat over my sister's wedding. I didn't choose anything. Yes, you did. You chose them. Again. I zipped up my bag and headed for the door. Tyler grabbed my arm. Sarah, please, don't leave like this. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized I was seeing him clearly for the first time in 2 years. Tyler, I love you. But I can't be with someone who sees me as optional. You're not optional. Then prove it. Come to Emma's wedding. He let go of my arm. The silence stretched between us. I can't. Then we're done. I walked out of our apartment, out of our relationship, and out of the life I thought we were building together. But I had no idea that the real revelations about Tyler and the Brotherhood were just beginning. I spent Thursday night at Emma's apartment, crying into her wedding dress bags while she held me and let me vent about everything that had been building up for months. Emma, being the amazing sister she is, didn't say, "I told you so," even though she'd been gently questioning Tyler's priorities for the better part of a year. Sarah, I'm so sorry this happened right before the wedding. Do you want to postpone? We can figure something out. Absolutely not. Your wedding is happening, and it's going to be perfect. I'm not letting Tyler ruin the most important day of your life. Friday morning, the day of the rehearsal dinner, Tyler started calling, and calling, and calling. I let every call go to voicemail. The messages started apologetic and escalated to frustrated, then back to desperate. Sarah, please pick up. I made a mistake. Let's talk about this. Babe, you're being irrational. I never said you weren't important to me. Fine. If you want to be childish about this, I'll just go to the wedding. Happy now? That last message made me laugh. A bitter, exhausted laugh. Even his attempt at compromise was dripping with resentment. Like doing the bare minimum for my sister's wedding was some huge sacrifice he was making to appease his unreasonable girlfriend. Saturday morning, Emma's wedding day, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. As I helped Emma get ready, watching her glow with happiness and excitement about marrying someone who genuinely prioritized her and their relationship, I realized how far I'd fallen from my own standards. You made the right choice, Emma said as I was fixing her veil. David would never miss our wedding for a guy's trip. He wouldn't even consider it. She was right. David, her fiancé, had turned down his own bachelor party when it conflicted with Emma's birthday. That's what love looked like. Not grand gestures, but consistent choices to put your partner first when it mattered. Tyler didn't show up to the wedding. Part of me had hoped he'd come to his senses, but a bigger part of me was relieved. I didn't want him there out of guilt or obligation. I wanted someone who wanted to be there, who understood that showing up for the people you love isn't a burden, it's a privilege. Sunday evening, after the wedding festivities had ended and I was helping Emma pack for her honeymoon, my phone rang. It was Jessica, and she sounded weird. Sarah, I need to tell you something, and I don't know how you're going to take this. What's wrong? I was at brunch downtown today, and I saw Tyler and his friends. But Sarah, they weren't at any retreat. They were at bottomless mimosas at that place on 23rd, laughing and taking selfies. They've been in town all weekend. My stomach dropped. What? I took a picture because I thought you should know. They're all wearing matching t-shirts that say bros before hoes on them. Sarah, I think they planned this whole thing. She sent me the photo. There they were. Tyler, Marcus, Jake, Connor, and Brody, clearly hungover from a night of partying, wearing those disgusting shirts, celebrating what looked like a successful mission rather than supporting a friend through a mental health crisis. The retreat had been a lie. The whole story about Marcus needing support, about it being a last-minute opportunity, about it being some crucial bonding experience, all of it was fabricated. They'd planned a Bros Before Hoes weekend specifically to test whether Tyler would choose them over me, and he'd passed their test with flying colors. I called Emma immediately. Em, they lied about everything. There was no retreat. They planned this whole thing to see if Tyler would choose them over your wedding. Sarah, I'm so sorry, but also, I'm so glad you found out who he really is before you wasted any more time on him. Monday evening, Tyler came home from his fake retreat, tanned from what was clearly a weekend of day drinking and probably strip clubs, carrying a duffel bag and wearing sunglasses indoors like some kind of wannabe celebrity. Hey babe, I'm back. How was the wedding? I was sitting on our couch with my laptop, looking at apartments. I'd spent the day researching my options and had already scheduled 3 viewings for the week. How was your retreat, Tyler? It was really good, really helpful for Marcus. Lots of meditation and hiking. I turned my laptop around to show him Jessica's photo. Funny, because you look pretty relaxed for someone who spent the weekend hiking and meditating. His face went white. Sarah, I can explain. Can you? Because I'd love to hear the explanation for how a wellness retreat in Bend somehow involved bottomless mimosas on 23rd Street and matching Bros Before Hoes t-shirts. Tyler sat down heavily, the weight of his lies finally catching up with him. Look, the retreat thing, that wasn't exactly true. No shit, Tyler. But we did need this weekend. The group has been under a lot of pressure lately and we needed to reconnect. By lying to me about missing my sister's wedding, we knew you wouldn't understand. Understand what exactly? That sometimes the Brotherhood has to come first. That sometimes we have to prove our loyalty. By wearing shirts that call me a hoe? Tyler actually looked embarrassed about that part. That was Brody's idea. It was supposed to be funny. Hilarious. So let me get this straight. You and your friends planned an elaborate lie to test whether you choose them over me, and when you passed their little loyalty test, you celebrated by wearing shirts that degrade women? It wasn't like that. What was it like, Tyler? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, look, the guys think you've been trying to change me. They think you're trying to pull me away from them. And what do you think? I think maybe they're right. That was it. The final confirmation that Tyler saw our relationship as me trying to control him rather than us, trying to build something together. In his mind, wanting to spend time with him, wanting him to prioritize our relationship occasionally, wanting him to show up for important moments. All of that was manipulation, rather than love. Tyler, I want you to listen very carefully. I have never tried to change you. I have never asked you to stop being friends with them. I asked you to make space for me too. I asked you to show up for me the way you show up for them. And apparently, that was too much to ask. Sarah, I'm moving out. I've already started looking at apartments. You don't have to do that. We can work this out. No, we can't. Because you don't want to work this out. You want me to accept being your second choice forever, and I won't do that. Tyler stared at me, and I could see him realizing that I was serious. That this wasn't a fight we'd get through like the others. So that's it? You're just gonna throw away 2 years? Tyler, you threw away 2 years the moment you chose to lie to me about missing my sister's wedding so you could prove your loyalty to friends who think I'm a hoe. I closed my laptop and stood up. I'll be out by the end of the week. As I walked toward our bedroom to pack more of my things, Tyler called after me. Sarah, you're making a mistake. You're never going to find someone who loves you the way I do. I turned around and looked at him one last time. Tyler, I really hope that's true, because the way you love me isn't enough. But what I discovered over the next few weeks would prove that Tyler's version of love wasn't just inadequate, it was completely fake. Moving out of that apartment was like waking up from a 2-year coma. For the first time in months, I could breathe without wondering when the next Brotherhood emergency would interrupt my life. As I sat in my new studio apartment, small but entirely mine, I started processing what had actually happened to me. I'd spent 2 years accepting crumbs of attention from someone who was supposed to love me. I'd normalized being treated as optional, as secondary, as temporary. Somewhere along the way, I'd convinced myself that fighting for basic respect and consideration was the same thing as being needy or controlling. The truth is, I'd lost myself trying to be the cool girlfriend who didn't ask for too much. I'd watched Tyler give his best energy, his loyalty, his time, and his emotional investment to 5 other people while I got whatever was left over. And I'd told myself that was enough because I was afraid of being alone. Looking back, I can see how insidious the whole thing was. Tyler and the Brotherhood had created this system where any woman who wanted her partner to prioritize their relationship was automatically labeled as controlling, clingy, or jealous. They'd weaponize the language of healthy relationships, trust, independence, supporting friendships, to justify completely selfish behavior. They made me feel crazy for wanting my boyfriend to show up for my sister's wedding. They made me feel unreasonable for expecting him to be present during family emergencies. They turned normal relationship expectations into character flaws on my part. The Bros Before Hoes weekend wasn't just about Tyler choosing them over me. It was about maintaining a system where women are always the enemy, always the threat to male friendship, always the ones asking for too much. They needed Tyler to prove that he valued their toxic dynamic more than building a healthy adult relationship. The hardest lesson was realizing how much I'd compromised my own values to keep Tyler happy. I'm someone who believes in showing up for the people you love, in being reliable and present and supportive. But I'd spent 2 years making excuses for someone who embodied none of those qualities. I'd also learned to minimize my own needs. When Tyler missed important events, I'd tell myself it wasn't that big of a deal. When he lied about where he was, I'd convince myself I was overreacting. When he chose his friends over me repeatedly, I'd focus on the rare occasions when he did show up for me and tell myself that was enough. I realized I'd been so afraid of being that girlfriend, the one who's demanding or controlling, that I'd become a ghost in my own relationship. I'd made myself smaller and smaller, asking for less and less, until I was practically invisible. The signs were there from the beginning, but I'd been too invested in the potential of our relationship to see them clearly. Tyler never talked about our future in concrete terms. It was always vague, someday language that kept me hoping without actually committing to anything. He'd never integrated me into his real life. After 2 years, I was still Tyler's girlfriend to the Brotherhood. Never just Sarah. I was never invited to their important conversations, never included in their major decisions, never treated as someone whose opinion mattered. Most tellingly, Tyler never defended me to them. When they made jokes about girlfriends being controlling or needy, he'd laugh along. When they criticized women for having expectations in relationships, he'd nod in agreement. He never once stood up for me or for the idea that romantic relationships deserve respect and priority. Real love doesn't make you compete for attention. Real love doesn't require you to prove your worth constantly. Real love doesn't treat you like an inconvenience or an obligation. Watching Emma with David during their wedding weekend showed me what healthy love looks like. David didn't need his friend's permission to prioritize Emma. He didn't see supporting her as a burden or a threat to his other relationships. He understood that building a life with someone means choosing them, consistently, and without resentment. I learned that love isn't just a feeling. It's a series of choices. And Tyler had been choosing everyone but me for 2 years, while expecting me to be grateful for the scraps of attention he threw my way. The most important lesson was about boundaries. I'd been so afraid of being labeled as demanding that I'd stopped demanding anything at all. I'd let Tyler train me to expect less and less, until I was accepting treatment that I would never tolerate from a friend or family member. Setting boundaries isn't about controlling other people. It's about protecting yourself. When I finally told Tyler that missing Emma's wedding would end our relationship, I wasn't trying to manipulate him. I was clearly communicating what I needed to feel valued and respected. His choice to prioritize a fake retreat over my sister's wedding told me everything I needed to know about his character and his feelings for me. And for the first time in 2 years, I listened to what his actions were telling me instead of what his words promised. You teach people how to treat you by what you accept. I'd taught Tyler that he could treat me as optional, and he'd learned that lesson perfectly. But I was about to learn that Tyler's disrespect was just the tip of the iceberg. It's been 6 months since I walked out of that apartment, and I'm writing this from my new place, a beautiful 1-bedroom in the Alberta district that I can afford entirely on my own. The Nike campaign I led ended up winning 3 industry awards, and I got promoted to senior art director. Turns out, when you're not constantly stressed about your relationship, you have a lot more creative energy to pour into your work. I'm dating someone new now. His name is Alex, and the difference is night and day. When I told him about my sister's upcoming anniversary party, He immediately asked what he could bring and whether he should coordinate with my dad about transportation. When my mom had a follow-up appointment for her health issues, Alex offered to drive us both and wait in the lobby. These aren't grand romantic gestures. They're just the basic actions of someone who sees supporting me as a privilege, not a burden. The most telling difference? Alex has close male friends too, but when I met them, they were genuinely interested in getting to know me. They asked about my work, my family, my interests. They treated me like a person Alex cared about, not like an obstacle to their friendship. Revolutionary concept, right? Through mutual friends, I've heard bits and pieces about how things have unfolded for Tyler and his precious Brotherhood. Apparently, the group dynamics have been interesting. Marcus, the self-appointed leader, got fired from his finance job for some kind of ethics violation. Instead of supporting him through a difficult time, the Brotherhood basically ghosted him. Turns out their loyalty only extends to fun times and ego-boosting activities, not actual hardship. Connor finally found a girlfriend who put up with his drama for about 3 months before she got tired of dating 5 people instead of 1. When she left him, Connor apparently had a breakdown about how women always leave, and bros are the only ones you can count on. The irony was completely lost on him. Jake's bar got shut down for health code violations, and he's been struggling financially. When he asked the group for help, they were suddenly too busy to respond to his calls. So much for Brotherhood being forever. Brody got arrested for a DUI and called Tyler for bail money. Tyler, apparently, was going through some stuff and couldn't help. Brody's been telling anyone who'll listen that Tyler changed and abandoned the Brotherhood for some girl. The fact that Tyler and I broke up months ago doesn't seem to matter to Brody's narrative. 2 months ago, Tyler started reaching out. First, it was casual texts asking how I was doing. Then, longer messages about how he'd learned a lot and grown as a person. Finally, he asked if we could meet for coffee to talk about everything. I agreed to meet him, mostly out of curiosity. Tyler looked diminished somehow. The confident, charming guy I'd fallen for seemed smaller, more uncertain. He spent an hour telling me about how the Brotherhood had fallen apart, how he realized I'd been right about their toxic dynamics, how he missed what we had. Sarah, I know I messed up. I know I took you for granted, but I've learned from this. I understand now what a real relationship should look like. I listened to his whole speech, and then I asked him one question. Tyler, if we got back together and Marcus called you right now with some emergency, what would you do? He hesitated. Just for a second, but it was enough. Sarah, that's not fair. Marcus and I aren't even talking anymore. That's not what I asked. The fact that he couldn't immediately say he'd prioritize our conversation, our relationship, our time together, told me everything I needed to know. Tyler hadn't changed. His circumstances had changed. He wasn't reaching out because he'd learned to value me. He was reaching out because his other options had disappeared. I used to think that Tyler's inability to prioritize our relationship was about immaturity or poor communication skills. Now I understand it was about character. Tyler is someone who will always take the path of least resistance, who will always choose whatever option requires the least emotional investment from him. When the Brotherhood was demanding his loyalty, it was easier to disappoint me than to disappoint them. When they fell apart and he was lonely, it was easier to try to get me back than to do the work of building new, healthier relationships. I'm grateful for the experience now, even though it was painful. Tyler taught me what I won't accept in a relationship. He showed me the difference between someone who says they love you and someone who actually loves you through their actions. To anyone reading this who sees themselves in my story, you deserve better. You deserve someone who chooses you consistently, who shows up for your important moments, who sees supporting you as a joy rather than a burden. Don't settle for being someone's backup plan. Don't accept being treated as optional. And definitely don't waste years of your life trying to convince someone to prioritize you. The right person won't need convincing. Love isn't supposed to be a competition. The right person won't make you fight for their attention or prove your worth constantly. They'll choose you, clearly and consistently, because that's what love actually looks like. Tyler was right about one thing. His Brotherhood was forever. Forever toxic, forever immature, and forever incapable of real intimacy or growth. I'm building something much better than forever. I'm building something real. Thanks for reading, Reddit. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is someone showing you exactly who they are. Believe them the first time,